5 minutes per speaker, 20 slides, 15 seconds each.
So I'm going to talk tonight about what is Ignite Portland. So what is Portland? Yeah, let's talk about that. So my PDX in a word, what was kind of for, was live, local, geeky, and bacon. And who doesn't love bacon? And really it's, 5 minutes of fury and everything you can't say in a word.
Where does imagination go sometimes? We lose that imagination as we get older. As adults, we lose what we had as children, our vivid imagination. And I want to talk about the famous Keith Johnstone experiment, I guess. You can read about it in his book, Impro, great book. Anybody that likes anything interesting, check it out. He gave a group of adults a blank piece of paper and a pen. He said, draw me something. And they said, like what? He said, anything. And he said, we don't know what you want us to draw. He took those people's children, he gave them a blank piece of paper, he gave them a pen, he told them to draw him something. And they started drawing everything you could imagine. A horse slipping on noodles, ninja riding a bus, a man who was taking a bath one evening when the power went out, and for fear of slipping in the dark, he spent the night in the bathtub. So let me change it up now. I'm going to distinguish between imagination and belief. You can imagine something, but unless you believe it, you're not going to do it. So you can imagine you can fly, but you're not going to try to fly unless you believe it. These two stiff guys here, they imagined they could make an airplane out of a bicycle. And guess what they did? Now, do you think that they would have ever thought it would have turned into this? This is what it looks like when a fighter jet decelerates from Mach speed. Just imagine what it looks like when we're going to be decelerating from light speed. I think we can all imagine that. All progression through history has had to do with imagination plus action. That's how we get change. That's how we do what we're going to do. That's how we move on to the future. That's how we make things better. What are some pitfalls for imagination? Well, creative synthesis. It's when somebody has a great idea and everybody copies it. You notice this a lot in pop culture with the music industry, Hollywood films. And from my next point, creative synthesis. Just kidding, that's a creative synthesis joke. Stupid. Where doesn't imagination go? Imagination can only go where we can imagine it to go. And imagination has never gone where I imagined it couldn't. Have fun, stay positive, say yes.
Hi, I'm John Purr, and since today is Super Tuesday, I thought I would talk about how politics is turning into entertainment. So to begin with, I want to start with the central fact of the campaign. As you can see, George W. Bush is slightly more popular than the Ebola virus. Now, so in theory, Democrats should be in really good shape. Americans in polls prefer Democrats over Republicans for president, for Congress, and across virtually every issue. So in theory, Democrats should sweep to victory in November. Then again, maybe not. So the question becomes, how do you account for election outcomes that are so at odds with what a majority of the American people believe? Voter intensity versus propensity. Basically what this means is that sometimes it's more important how strongly one group feels about an issue than what Americans feel about it overall. Which brings us to the culture war. In a nutshell, social issues can trump economic self-interest. It's no accident that the GOP put same-sex marriage bans on the ballot in 17 states. A lot of progressives often say, we'd win if we just did a better job of educating people. Linguist George Lakoff says, not necessarily so. Republicans often win because they do a better job of framing issues that speak to voters' values and emotions. Due to an oversupply of media, politics has to compete for Americans' mindshare, and news, politics, entertainment is blurring. And often, it's the best show that wins. They're moving away from big three networks, from newspapers and local news, and now going to cable news and to the internet to get their political coverage. And as a result, they confront what I call the infotainment complex. That is, news, opinion, politics, entertainment, it all blurs as they're overwhelmed by all of these different sources of media. When entertainment and politics are the same thing, the first thing that suffers is the truth. Now, all issues are basically presented as having two and only two sides. All the cable news shows bring on partisans to fight it out. The loudest and most aggressive is declared the winner. Politics is even becoming an extension of media culture. These stories were all covered by the national media. To be considered authentic, politicians have to be performers. So for example, what if Mike Huckabee wants to return America to the Middle Ages? He plays a mean bass. Nothing shows this more than the campaign's Christmas ads. Each sent holiday greetings to voters in Iowa, New Hampshire, and online, and there's really no question why Rudy Giuliani only won one delegate. The economy dominates as the issue Americans are most concerned about, more than Iraq, more than terrorism. And so the question is that what the campaigns will talk about? Short answer, no. We can expect more catchphrases and false conflict. Democrats will paint the GOP as the party of Bush. Republicans will mobilize their base by saying 3 words, President Hillary Clinton. There are signs of hope, though. We have record turnout so far this year. The internet is changing the landscape. And just ask Virginia Senator George Allen about his YouTube macaca moment. That was entertainment.
My name is Chris Logan. I moved to Portland a few years ago, and I want to talk with you tonight about why I think Portland, it's time for Portland to take its place and build some really great companies. We in Portland are the most polite drivers in the country, and it made me think, are we really polite or are we just afraid to merge? So we are some of the best educated, the most literate. It's not all good. I mean, just look around the room. Look how white the room is. It's like, we're in a gated community in Orange County, less the Asians. The year I got here, actually the first full year I was here, the Silicon Valley did 100 times more venture money than Portland. I mean, in fact, even in my career, I've raised more money than Oregon did in all of 2005. And people told me you can't raise money in Portland, and I want to challenge that because venture is attracted to TEAM and TAM, and I want to talk a little bit about that and drill into it. And let me start with TAM, which means total addressable market. We are at the heart of the stuff that people are most excited about. We're most excited about it. It's in fact what's attracting money right now. And we've got talent. We are the envy of the country. Last year alone, 23,000 college-educated young people moved to Portland, right? We've got the talent. So what the hell's the problem? And I'll tell you, the problem I say is we don't yet have the entrepreneurial leadership. I think we haven't figured out how to pull all this together and really take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of us. Ask venture people when they say, I can't invest in Portland because it's the land of the living dead. This is the worst nightmare for a venture capitalist, which is profitability but no growth. You can never get a return on that. So really what we need to focus on is how to build growing companies. Stuff that makes us passionate can be great companies. I think we need to really focus on is delivering the value that we're all focusing on and getting excited about to the world, right? They want our clean tech. They want to participate in the things that we're doing, and that can be the basis of a great company. It's funny to me that the national media has picked up on the potential of Portland, I think even more than the local media. I read about us constantly in the New York Times and Esquire, and we just need to raise the standard.
My name is Kelly Gamont. I am the verso who actually uttered the infamous phrase from Scott's talk, but is it wrapped in bacon good? So this is why I'm really here. I'm going to talk to you about pepper. These are the things I'm not going to be covering. Sadly, I will not be discussing the sergeant, and contrary to the topic of my talk, I will not be discussing the doctor either. So here's where the word comes from, and as you can tell, it goes back to Sanskrit, and if you don't know much about Sanskrit, let me clue you in. It goes back really, 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 really far. So how old is pepper? It comes from basically as far back as anything has been recorded. In fact, in ancient Egypt, they found peppercorns in the nose of Ramses II. All of these different kinds of pepper come from the single Piper nigrum plant, what we call standard issue black pepper. What makes it pepper is if the genus is piper in the Latin name, but not everything that we call pepper necessarily meets that criteria. The cool thing about pepper is it advanced civilization. It's been demanded as ransom. It's been used as currency.
I am Pete Lucky. I'm a nerd about town, and I love strange things. One of the things I love is abandoned places. I think they're beautiful, they're haunting, they're empty. This is a stairway in a place known as Pirate Town. It's also known as Triangle Park, or the McCormick and Baxter creosoting factory. This is the stone house. It was built in the 30s by the WPA and abandoned in the 60s. After a gigantic storm. This is an abandoned passenger train. As you can see, it's been a little bit torn up. This is graffiti. I really like graffiti. I really love the abstract nature of it. I love the lines, I love the contrast. This says space, obviously. I have a nice stencil. I thought this was appropriate for IgnitePortland.
Disclaimer, I have never been a cop, I have never been a hooker, I have never been a cop pretending to be a hooker. But I'm probably the only non-cop to attend the New York Police Department's training class for Operation Losing Proposition, which I like to call Undercover Hooker School. It's a single 7-hour session taught for about 100 cops at a time. They're the newest recruits for the oldest profession. Trainees get a 46-page handbook and a multiple choice test. I passed that test. Really, if I were a cop, I could be a hooker. All right, here we go. The crime of patronizing a prostitute, Class B misdemeanor, punishable by up to 3 months in prison and a fine of up to $500. Keep in mind when you're an undercover, you don't actually get to have sex. You're just making the deal a sexual act for some kind of fee. Don't feel bad if a John doesn't offer you cash money. Maybe he'll promise to swap you something cool like an oil change or some coke. In all accounts, 3 years ago in Rhode Island, a 22-year-old meat truck driver got busted by an undercover hooker. He offered her 2 T-bone steaks. How should I dress? Don't overdo it or the Johns will know you're a cop, but you've got to be a real streetwalker. You're not Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, Paris Hilton on Halloween. You're not Betty Page on a pinup calendar. Sweatpants may be more convincing than stilettos on your track. Your backup team can hear you on the wire, but before you go out, you want to establish a set of hand signals so they can see you in case the wire goes down. Keep it subtle. If it looks like you're trying to flag down a plane or you're doing the Numa dance, the John will probably flee. Don't be brash. Never start a conversation with, "Hello, would you like a blowjob for $10? Push too hard, your bust won't stand up in court. It's called entrapment. To claim entrapment, a John has to prove he wasn't already predisposed to patronize a hooker, that you actively solicited his behavior. In other words, you bullied him, you framed him. No man could resist your hookerly charms." Lie. Believe it or not, there are still some poor naive souls out there who think that cops can't lie. Not everyone who tries this stuff comes out on top. In 2006, a couple entrepreneurial young women pretended to be undercover hookers to arrest Johns and then take all their money. That worked pretty well until they tried to arrest a cop who was undercover as a John and got themselves arrested.